Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wensveen.
Hi, and welcome to Sunshine Startups Live. I'm entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and host of Sunshine Startup Live, Jim Ryan. Great to be with you again. And if you like these podcasts, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'm joined always by my good friend co-hosting with me, John Wensveen. John, great to be with you, my friend.
Great to be with you too, my friend. I like it how everybody says, if you like, I almost wonder if there's an opportunity to change it to love and some kind of new thing that we can do out there digitally. You're like, I love this podcast.
Like a big heart.
Right? Maybe an opportunity. Well, hello, everybody. John Wensveen, Chief Innovation Officer here at Nova Southeastern University and Executive Director of the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation, the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs, where we support the founder's journey from birth of an idea through successful exit or global expansion. And we have another exciting guest with us. And again, 2024, season number 2.
Exciting, and as we joke, the networks renewed our seven-figure contracts, and so it's great to be with everyone again on season 2. And what a great time to talk tech, obviously with this surge of AI. We're going to hear about the blue economy, and our guest today is Greg Taffet. I've known Greg for many years, and one of the reasons why I love doing these podcasts is get to know more about Greg, and you're going to hear a lot today about Greg, his background, tech, this idea of the blue economy and how important it is to Florida, and the opportunities abound with the blue economy. And Greg, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to be with us today on Sunshine Startups Live.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
And he's wearing blue.
And he's wearing blue. So
yes.
Was that strategic?
No, most of the stuff
just
I
by
have
chance.
is blue. So, there was a high probability that it would be something
I only
blue.
own blue.
Yeah.
So Greg's had a great career in technology early on, maybe even before the idea of, really what is AI and what is tech. Greg has been there from the very early beginnings and has got this incredible background story about how his journey from various and variety of different industries across. But what you'll hear, a common theme is tech. And now as a fractional CIO, we're going to hear about that as well. But Greg, I want to start with you because you are not, strangely enough, a Florida native. But like so many people came down to Florida, what attracted you to come down to the Sunshine State?
Well, it was actually a job offer. I was working for an energy company up in Connecticut. And when that company got bought out, I was looking around, and U.S. Gas and Electric down here in South Florida made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. So, I talked it over with my wife and said, if we're going to move any place, Florida is a great place to move. So, I packed up my bags and came down to Florida.
And you've never left.
Never left.
So that's just something good about Florida, in particular South Florida. So let's talk a little bit about your journey. What we like to do with our guests is talk about what I call their founder's journey, whether they're an entrepreneur or they're a business person or they're some kind of a community leader. It doesn't matter the background, but everybody has what I'll call a founder's journey that goes through these different life cycles from birth through where they are today. Can you walk us through a little your journey, starting with, I know we talked earlier, you're born in New Jersey, made your way to Connecticut, and then where does the story go? And you made your way down to Florida and...
Well, I was always interested in the marine environment. And so my undergraduate degree is in biology, and specifically centering on marine biology. But then when I got to looking for jobs, they offered me the ability to wash bottles. So I said, what else do I know? Well, I learned how to use computers. So I quickly switched my vocation and my avocation and said, let me get a job in computers. And I worked my way rapidly up to becoming a CIO and have never looked back, And now it allows me the ability to actually start to take on projects that merge both the technology and the blue economy, like working with environmental disaster recovery company right now, a ecotourism company, and a lot of others that are both technology and biology, and in most cases part of the blue economy.
Well, why don't you define that? And because we've mentioned it a couple of times now, the blue economy. What is the blue economy for those that are unaware of what that term of art is?
Right. So everybody is familiar with the green economy, everything that has to do with the environment and everything living and how everything interacts together. Well, the blue economy is a subset of the green economy dealing with the oceans and the maritime areas. So it deals with the coral reefs, the fishes, the mangrove trees, the seagrass, the currents, maritime activities, and everything else that's associated with the oceans.
And probably South Florida in particular, or the state of Florida, probably isn't a better place, at least in North America, to really think about the blue economy with all of the dynamics that we have throughout this state, where we were surrounded by water. There are so many innovative ideas and challenges around the state, particularly South Florida. And if you think about this perception that with rising tides, that Florida may be sinking, up for great debate. And we're in a really interesting time right now where there's a lot of opportunities around the blue economy. So based on some of the trends and some of the challenges that are out there right now, where are the opportunities in the blue economy? And where does Florida fit into that?
There's opportunity everywhere. There's the biggest coral tree restoration effort in the world is happening down here in South Florida. And I actually get involved in doing coral reef restoration. There is, I just found out yesterday, there's another founder who's starting an oyster farm and to sell oysters and help with the oyster population. There's a lot of people who are doing research into biomimicry. So how does a remora attach to a fish? So right now, when we do fish migration studies, we take a drill and we drill it into their fin and attach a receiver. Well, they're now looking at how can we just suction cup it on, because remoras don't fall off, and be much nicer to the fish and have less environmental impact. There's a startup that one of the Shark Tank investors just invested in that is doing printing seawalls. So there's environmental and marine action everywhere.
I remember seeing years ago, you might be familiar, a company that was even, this goes back almost 10 years now, that was looking to harvest pompano and farm pompano. Obviously, a fish that they have an accelerated span to growth. And so it's an incredible fish if you could farm it, and the challenges. And there was some early tech there. On the farming system of raising and farming pompano. So sort of given your background, originally obviously in biology, your interest marine, your more recent years with tech, how is tech playing a part, or even AI playing a part now with some of this interest in this blue economy, coupling these two industries, if you will?
It has become a lot more scientific and a lot less art, in doing the analysis. Like I'm involved with a sea cucumber farm, and we're growing sea cucumbers. So you can do a lot more analysis right now of what temperatures and what food mixes and what water flows are best for growing sea cucumbers. And you can do this analysis almost real time now, so that as opposed to, a bunch of ranchers going out and collecting lobsters or collecting sea cucumbers or just collecting oysters, we now have the ability to actually do real-time analysis and forecasting of what's the right way to do these things. So it's the sensors and the ability for AI to recognize, what is a piece of dust and what's a little tiny microorganism, because they start off, almost invisible. And the ability to recognize them and then know which ones are growing and what's happening. There's robots right now that are just scanning and flying over the ocean bottom, mapping. So for coral reefs, mapping where the corals are growing better, where the corals are bleaching, is a tremendous help to the scientific community. A lot of the microphones, for recording sounds. And then you take the AI on top of it, that a researcher doesn't have to spend a year to try to analyze what these are. You have the AI almost doing it, in real time to say, this is what's going on in the water. These are what these noises mean.
So you bring up a really interesting topic, AI, so artificial intelligence, and we've talked about AI, machine learning with other guests, and we've got some insight from experts about where we are in the world of AI and where the world may be going, and maybe we don't even know where it's going. I'm curious, in your world, the different environments that you touch, what is your opinion of what AI is doing now versus what it's going to have the capability to do in the future?
AI, to me, is just one more tool in the toolkit. It is very rapidly replacing just older algorithms that were doing the same thing, but much slower, and in some cases, not as accurately. So like with the artificial intelligence of looking at something and determining what it is, we're able to understand what a species is at the larval stage because we can recognize it. We can look at something now and count them much faster. As the robot flies over, you can actually do the analysis and see, okay, I've got 1 million in this square meter. Before, we would guess how many we had in a square meter, until they got much larger. And this way we know the mortality rates much more accurately. It comes down to AI is just more accurate. It's a tool, and, I don't get into any of the generative type AI stuff. It's all the AI with virtual reality, augmented reality, recognition algorithms. It's like years ago you had the thing of, is it a dog or a bagel? And now we can categorically say which one it is,
Wow.
100% of the time. 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, it was 50% correct. Now it's 100% correct, and it does it so much faster than us counting. It makes all of our analysis much faster and much more accurate.
You were talking about the maturation of tech and AI, and I wanted to talk about and pivot a bit on the maturation of the market. Because you were sort of an early pioneer in tech here in Florida. I've seen you in circles many years ago and so forth, and now you're being requested to be on numerous panels. I see you in Miami, throughout the state, and so forth, talking about tech, talking about the blue economy. So, Greg, talk about the maturation of this market for Florida for you, coming here X amount of years ago already, and then seeing this market mature to where it is today. What's your experience been like, and seeing that growth here for Florida?
The real growth has been the number of startups that have been successfully coming to market here. I think is, exceeding all expectations. At least when I look at it, I see tech startups, that are pure tech. I see blue economy startups. I see consumer startups. I see medical startups. And all of them, because there's such a generous environment of people willing to work together and share, I think these startups are getting a much better startup here and a much better ability to talk to other founders and learn from each other, that a lot of them are very successful, and you see that they're staying around. So I don't think it's a maturing of things. I think it's a, exponential growth of new, small and mid-sized companies just blooming here. We still have the old, companies, up a little bit. You still have Pratt and Whitney. You still have Burger King. You still have all the cruise lines, but they're pretty stable. I think everything is growing because we have such a great environment for the startups.
So I'm very passionate about the startup community, hence why we have this incredible innovation center to help support startups. And what's interesting is a lot of startups aren't positioned to be able to scale. A lot of them fail, a number of reasons why. And one of those reasons is often, especially early stage founders, often take the resources that they get, and the first thing they do is they go out and hire people, which is a huge overhead expense, not recognizing that there may be other alternatives for them at all the different stages of their journey. So when you talk about a CIO and a fractional CIO, we're starting to hear the word fractional more than we've ever heard before. Could you give an explanation as to what a fractional CIO does and who would take advantage of such an opportunity? Is it meant for the more mature companies? Can early stage companies take advantage of fractional positions, the benefits that come along with that?
A lot of the smaller companies are exceptional at their product that they're working on. Where they have never had enough training is in how the back office and the business of business works. And so they try to do that, but in many cases, it's overwhelming for the founder, the COO, the CEO to take on every hat. And so when it gets to be overwhelming, that's where I come in and help on the technology side of handling all the back office, whether it's the CRM system, the ERP, the risk management, the payroll, the e-commerce, all the things that they really don't want to focus on because they want to focus on their product. And so along with fractional CFOs and fractional CMOs, we can come in and supply just the right amount because they don't need a full-time CIO. And even when the companies get larger, in most cases, until they get to be much larger, they don't need a full-time CIO. And so therefore I can come in, help them on the technology side, do strategic planning for them, because most companies get technology and systems that they ask for, not what they need, because they ask the wrong questions and they get their questions answered, and because they haven't done this before, the questions that they've asked are not the right questions, because they spent all this time figuring out their product. Look at your phone nowadays. Only 10% of my phone is used as a phone.
Right.
It used to be everybody know how to use their phone.
Right.
And everything on their phone. Now, you've got so much tech in your phone. It's like, well, what just downloaded today? And so we help with figuring out, not just going after what's the shiny, idea of today, but what are the foundational things that they should be focusing on, and help with them to focus on just the right things at the right time. And that, of course, changes as the companies grow.
Yep.
You talked about on the for-profit work that you do, being a CIO, fractional CIO, and I know you do a lot of not-for-profit work. I've known Greg is always very focused on paying it forward and helping support entrepreneurship. The venture mentoring team, you were an early mentor, founding mentor, helping support altruistically startups, working from a bakery startup to a high-tech AI startup and everything in between. Kind of talk about that altruistic side of you a little bit more, because it's not something you wear it on your sleeve, but you do project yourself out there in the market to help support entrepreneurs and as John mentioned, the founder's journey. So talk about mentorship for you and how important that's been, and putting that in your arsenal of who you are.
I think that's a critical part of my DNA is to give back. You mentioned the bakery. How many people can say they're getting paid in bread? And it's good. You go and you help, and you walk out with a loaf of bread.
Not a bad day.
Right. Working, doing actual coral reef restoration of, going underwater with scuba gear and actually working on the coral reefs and helping to restore them. Working with, companies right now. Doing some stuff with Emerge and helping some of those founders with their pitches. Give a plug for Emerge. It's a great event every year. And the Venture Mentoring Team is, in my mind, one of the best groups of people I have ever met, because they're all of the same mentality. Everybody is looking, how can we help? And when I said before, South Florida, is a environment where people can get help, I think the VMT is a perfect example of how a whole bunch of people have gotten together to help out the startups. This wonderful facility here, there's nothing like it, in most places. So, this helps everybody, because it's a focal point that people know where to come and say, can you help me? And, in most cases, you can either, get the help that you need or find what you are looking for, So I am very passionate about, giving back, and even taking on, and working, for some of the nonprofits, like the National Association of Mental Illness, helping them with their technology plans, and other startups that are into how to help people with disabilities. So it's very rewarding. You can't say that we're just doing it to help them. It feels good to do these things.
So I'm going to find a bakery that needs some help because I love donuts. But we appreciate everything that you're doing to pay it forward, and I can see the passion actually coming out of your eyes when you talk about being able to give back. And we talked a little bit earlier about startups and how it's accelerating here in South Florida, and it's just getting bigger and better all of the time. There's more and more resources, more infrastructure, more of a mindset to help support the startup ecosystem. We're still growing. We're still maturing here in South Florida compared to other regions of the country. Is there something that's missing here in South Florida to help the startup ecosystem that we desperately need?
The South Florida is the most siloed environment I've ever seen. I go up to, I still have connections in Connecticut and New York, and you go up there and you go to a meeting of like-minded people, and you get 400 or 500 people of the core, the fringes, and everything else. Down here, there's a separate group for everything, and half the people are doing this. They're doing very good at this, but they don't talk to these people over here who are doing good at this and doing this thing, and it's very difficult when you want to do something that does this and this to get these people together to, multiply that effort.
What's the causation for that? Where did that stem from? And how would you propose to potentially to cure that?
Well, there's an organization, Tech Hub, and every year they have, for the last 8-10 years, they've had this show, and they invite all these organizations, to exhibit and participate. And it amazes me that there's 50, 60, 70 of them that are invited, and they're all specialized in something, and I think they need to get together more often, and talk and see what everybody is doing, because there's so many synergies that can be had, but there is the support no matter what you want to do. Mm-hmm. But like somebody today was talking to me about security, and they were saying, well, where should I go? And it was like, we have these people that are moving down here and they don't even know where the directory is to find these things, because I don't think there is a directory yet. Because you look and you have to network around, and then you find out, oh, I can be part of, this group, or I can be part of that group.
Yeah.
But, it takes a big effort.
So it's a great question that you asked to take a really deep dive. And I know that just from a startup ecosystem, there's been some attempts to create a directory, and the challenge, and you're right about the silo system, and it's changing. But if you take Miami and then a border, and then you take Fort Lauderdale and then a border, and then you're in Palm Beach, we always joke that you need a passport to go north and south here in South Florida. But I do believe that the startup ecosystem is probably the first movement that's truly bringing the South Florida region together as one. And it's going to take time, but but you're absolutely right about the silo system. And I kind of want to dig deeper into what Jim's question was, because your perception about what is happening is absolutely true. And you talk about different events, whether it's a South Florida Tech Hub or it's an Emerge Americas or something the Levan Center of Innovation is doing, and other organizations across the state like Synapse as an example. We gather a lot of people, and often the same people under one roof. We have a coffee and a bagel, but then nothing happens after that. So what is that strategic solution? So we can get everybody under one roof, but how do you force them to collaborate and sit around the same table like we are here today in miniature form, so that we have this ecosystem that continues to strive? And I don't know if that's my Rubik's Cube question.
It sounds like it was
that's
your
the one
Rubik's
I'm trying
Cube
to
question.
stump you on.
Well, completely from left field, Brightline is helping to solve that problem. Because, as you said, the border between Broward and Dade and Broward and Palm Beach is this magical line that, coming from the north, it doesn't bother me to drive. Like, if I had to drive into New York City, it wouldn't be my first choice. But when I have to drive into Miami, I drive into Miami. There's a lot of people that absolutely refuse to do that. And if it's not 5 minutes away. So I think what we really need is better mass transit that will help people overcome these boundaries that are perceived all over the place.
It's interesting. I won't name the organization, but I'm a participant in a very active organization here in South Florida that represents all the counties, including Monroe County. That topic actually just came up in a meeting that we had yesterday about the need for mass transit. And the solution and that most people bring to the table is, well, it actually starts with housing affordability. And if we have affordable housing, then everything else will take care of itself. I don't know if I agree with that, because there's so many things that are interlinked. But you're definitely, you got your pulse on it and you identify it. And that's why we need some smart people to come together to figure out, how do we come up with a solution? Because it can't be that difficult in concept, right? It's the implementation of it, and how do you change the mindset and get all the right parties together. But I was interested to hear your feedback, and it's very, very interesting to me. So.
And obviously, these are urban planning challenges there, right? But Brightline seems to be maybe not the full panacea, but at least an
It's
opportunity,
one step in the right
a
direction.
channel in the right direction. And that's where I think there's been this sort of maturation, at least, in some ways, urban planning. The Innovation Center here, you mentioned cybersecurity, massive interest here, facility for cybersecurity. The Knight Foundation published, I think a couple of years ago, a directory actually of accelerators, angel groups, and so forth. But I would agree with you. I think with the help of the Innovation Center, the Knight Foundation publishing a directory, you mentioned Tech Hub, it seems that there is a momentum and there is this push forward. But I think collectively, gathering great minds and then having takeaways from here on challenges, not only to help specific startups, but also challenges to break down the barriers that John mentioned earlier, I think would be something that would be important and on the docket to continue to bolster the market. Greg, what's 2024? It's the new year, new you. You mentioned the blue economy. What's on your docket right now, and then for the subsequent balance of the year?
I'm looking more at disaster recovery and disaster prevention. a lot of stuff with global warming is changing the weather patterns. We're having a lot more disasters, or we're having a lot more publicity about disasters. I don't know that since we have a lot more people, there's a lot more people in the path of a disaster, So I'm not sure how many more disasters we have versus how much we've built up stuff that is just not disaster resistant. It's also like you have a hurricane that wipes out some of the beaches. We put more sand on the beach. It floats off and kills the coral. Another big disaster in my mind. And looking at some of these things holistically, how do we actually work together privately and publicly of setting up some of the right rules to help prevent, the disasters from becoming, real problems.
So I know we're getting towards the end of our time here, and people get to know people from the professional lives that they live. I always like to get a little bit personal, because sometimes people don't get to voice something that they really want to tell the world about themselves. So is there something about you that most people don't know that you would just love to say, hey, this is Greg, here's something about me?
This could be part of the Rubik's Cube part 2, maybe.
It could be. And I screwed the Rubik's up so much, I can't even get it back together. So we got to find a guest that knows how to do this.
No, I think I've covered the fact that I'm a fractional CIO and technology and have been working in this area for, 40 years.
We caught that on the mic.
But the fact that I'm getting more time right now to do the types of projects that I really like, with the blue economy, with coral reef restoration, with, environmental impact, that is, the things that I'm looking forward to doing at this point.
And as a fractional CIO, how do people get a hold of you, Greg?
On LinkedIn, I have my website, taffet.org, or you ask the next person in line and what my email is. Hopefully they can find me, any place.
And you'll be at the CIO Council Live, South Florida CIO Council, South Florida Live event coming up by any chance in March?
Actually, no. That's when I'm going to be in Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, yes, you're going to be down under.
I have to do all the work and plan it, but that's March 5th at the what do you call it, center in Pembroke Pines.
Yeah, I've never been to it. Funny enough, it's the big venue. I forget the name of it. But yes, but I will be there. So we will have you there in spirit, and I'll be moderating the panel of the State of the CIO Live. So looking forward to that and talking about the trends, challenges, opportunities, and strategies. And so look forward to that. But have a great trip down under. Again, one of my favorite places in the world.
Thank you.
And Greg, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. And thanks for all the work that you do altruistically to help support startups, new businesses, people of color. You've really been a huge advocate. So appreciate all your altruistic efforts here to support startups, help build jobs, create economies, create communities. So thanks again for all your work there.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast, and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.